Here. Well, welcome everybody. It's Monday, August 29th or Tuesday, August the 30th, depending on where you are. And this is the Open-Hearted Practice Group, usually with Jim and Jory. And I don't see Jory at the moment. Maybe she'll come down, but I was just mentioning to folks that we're arriving early, that Jory's getting ready to take a trip, so she's probably upstairs packing. Got to get up in the morning and take her to the airport. And so she was up really early this morning, starting to get ready for the class. For the flight. She'll be gone about 10 days. So you're stuck with me for the next couple of weeks. And I think we'll have fun anyway. I get to really stretch I used to be a disc jockey when I was in college, and so I learned plus I'm a drummer. I learned how to do more than one thing at a time. So I'm making the little breakout rooms already while we're going. So our topic today is about the glue of connection. It's about making requests. And I'm looking forward to sharing what I have to offer about that. If you're here for the first time, a really special welcome to you. Really glad that you found us. It's always a mystery to me how people find us, but it's always fun when you do. And today we'll follow the pattern that we usually follow. So we start with in just a moment, we'll start with a self-connection exercise, which is a chance to practice nonviolent communication just with yourself. Then we'll have small group work where you get to go and just check in with somebody else, maybe two people, depending on how things go here. And then we'll come back into the large group and we'll have a lesson about making requests today with lots more practices, hopefully another small group or two as we go. So there's lots of chances to practice here. We consider this a practice group, not an empathy group. There are lots of different ways you can practice NVC, and we really focus on developing skills in this class. We're in the middle of a series, but that doesn't matter because each class also stands alone. So if this is your first time here, you might be hearing words that you might not be familiar with, but by the end of the class, you'll be more familiar with them. So with that, I'll go ahead and get going with the self-connection exercise, which will actually be a callback to what we did last week. So I'll also guide you to remember what we did last week and to connect with the power of gratitude, which is what we were working on last week. So let's just start, unless there's something up for anybody that would prevent us from going ahead and getting going. Okay, I see a thumbs up. So you can just start with your eyes open. They're probably open already. You can just let your eyes be open and look around where you are. Just practice this fundamental nonviolent communication skill of observing. Let your eyes go wherever they want to go. Just kind of relax your gaze, relax your neck. Let your eyes go wherever they want to go. Seeing whatever they want to see. And if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. And just listen. Again, just allowing whatever sounds that you're aware of in your environment. Maybe even hear the birds in our forest here. And just do a quick check-in with yourself. Just ask yourself, how do I feel right now? And whatever answer you find, make it okay. Maybe you feel happy, maybe you feel sad, maybe you feel angry or hurt or tired or bored or whatever. Just ask yourself the question, how do I feel right now? And then allow yourself to have the feeling that comes up for you. And just make it okay to feel whatever you feel. If you feel low, just love yourself feeling low. If you feel happy, love yourself feeling happy. It's been about a week since we've been together, most of us. Some of us are brand new today. But I'm predicting the same thing is true for you, whether you're here for the first time or whether you're here last week, that at least one thing happened in the last week that you experienced as a gift. So think of one thing that happened this week that you enjoyed. Maybe it was something that someone else did that made your life more wonderful. Maybe it's something that you did for somebody else that made life more wonderful. But see if you can name one specific thing that happened in the last week that you enjoyed. And describe it to yourself. What did you see? What did you hear? If there was a aroma or a taste associated with it, describe that. Maybe there was something about how something, the texture of it, or the way it impacted your skin. And then consider what need of yours was satisfied or fed when this gift arrived. In other words, why did you appreciate it? How did it support you? How did it feed you? Maybe it's something as simple as at least gravity was working, so your need for support was met. Or maybe at least one time this week you got a good night's sleep, meeting your need for rest. Whatever it is, see if you can connect it to a need. And then savor this need. Is that this need is in your life. And connect to the feeling that you have when you remember this, receiving this gift. And when you connect to the feelings, probably something in the flavor of gratitude or appreciation, maybe some other life affirming emotion. Savor that. Savor that feeling. Savoring just means to enjoy something, to extend the pleasure of enjoyment. We usually don't take the time to savor gratitude or appreciation. So this is the chance just to slow things down and appreciate, and then to feel that appreciation. And then consider, what did you do that helped make it happen? Did you make a request? Did you just happen to notice something wonderful? Some other kind of motivation inside of you helped to make it happen? It's your chance to take responsibility for receiving this gift. Enjoy your own creativity. You created the opportunity to receive this gift, even if all you did was notice that it happened. And when you're finished savoring, you can just come back, let your eyes look around the room again, kind of reorient yourself. And just think, what was this exercise like for you? Just notice what it was like for you. Did you like it? Did you not like it? And again, notice whatever the feeling is that you have, name it, allow yourself to have it. In just a moment, I'm going to invite you to go to a breakout room. If for some reason you don't want to go to a breakout room, then you can just put an equal sign in front of your name. And if you're just arriving, it might take me a minute to get you into a breakout room. In the breakout room, the suggestion is to talk about how this exercise affected you, whether you liked it or you didn't like it. And then also to reflect about how gratitude lives in you. What did you notice about gratitude this week, since that was our topic last week? What did you notice about gratitude? We're going to do this. Siva was at a group with us on Saturday, and she made a request that people seem to enjoy, which was to do mostly groups of 2. So that's what we will try today. And so you'll probably find yourself with one person. Might take a minute for the other person to arrive, because depending on your internet speed, it takes more or less time to get into a room. And again, 9 minutes chatting about your experience of gratitude. And I'll see you. Well, when the group is over, you don't need to do anything. You'll automatically come back here. Okay, here you go. Now, everybody be back in about 10 more seconds. Leanne. All All right. Looks like you all made it back okay from your long journey through cyberspace, from here to here.
Uh, Hi, Jim. This
Hey,
is
Rob.
Rob.
Hey, Rob.
It meets my needs better to have a larger group because some people are less active, or people I think tend to be talk a little bit less, maybe, you know.
Yeah.
If there's more people because you got kind of self-regulating more. But anyways, that's my thought on it. That it meets
Okay.
my need for more alive, yeah, more awareness, a little bit bigger group.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'll move you. I'll make you, I'll put you in a bigger group. That'll teach you to make a request.
Okay.
Now, you're now in a group of 14. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Woo! And I'll dominate.
Yes.
Use my jackal.
And let's see here. Francesca, you need, there you are.
Yeah, I I sort of agree with what he just said. And the sad thing about our group is that we had two, and then partway through we got a third person, and she only got like 60 seconds to talk. But
Uh-huh.
I like it when there's like the group is three or something.
Great
That
feedback.
way, if somebody doesn't know something, and sometimes it's me, somebody doesn't know something, the group still functions well. It was fine today, except the person that came in late got, 30 seconds.
Right, right. Cool. That's great feedback. Let's see. I haven't found you yet, but I will move you into another group here when I get a chance. I'll make myself a note. And Fran, Diana, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just interesting that I had the opposite experience of really appreciating that it was just me and one other person, and I could really devote all of my attention to just that experience. And I actually wasn't feeling very chatty myself, so I was perfectly happy to just take in what they were saying and practice my listening skills, and it worked well, I think. And I mean, I think my listening partner felt, I mean, my what do you call it? Small group partner felt similarly, but
Great.
I
Isn't
don't
it
want to speak for
interesting
them.
that we
But
all have different kind of reactions to a similar observation? That's one of the fundamental principles that I've noticed about NVC. That we all get to create our own experience. Go ahead, Allison.
I also enjoyed this rare experience of having just two. And for me, I found it was easier. I felt more relaxed because
What
I
about
realized
age
that,
15 tonight?
Oops.
uh, I realized that I usually am continuously an undercurrent of concern that everybody's going to get enough time, and maybe if there were three people and we had more time, but this worked very, very well. I thought for me it was really relaxing, and I could totally focus on this one person and what they were saying, and yeah, I loved it. And the
Great
three is
feedback.
also nice, but three if there were more time.
All right. Yeah, this was a short one. And that was the feedback I got on Saturday was, hey, if the groups or if the time frame is so short, then how about we just have two. So, and Suvana, you put your hand down. Is there something that you wanted to say?
I just wanted to copy both of these girls, Allison and all. I enjoyed really. I really feel that if there are two people, they get more amount of expression, like time.
Yeah.
When there are three people, then time gets divided. Then there is no justice when you're expressing fully. So I highly request two people.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
thank you
great
so
feedback.
much.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else want to chime in? Now you get to
Yeah.
have some compassion for me where and you already know this in your own experience. You can't make everybody happy, right? At least not with the first strategy. So that's why we kind of hang in there and try other things until we can figure out how to meet more needs with less cost. Hey, Patricia, go ahead.
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
My suggestion would be that after our name, we add a number, 2 or 3.
Oh, that's a nice idea. That's a nice idea. Yeah.
And yeah,
About in,
that would take care of everybody.
how about in the front?
Or in the
3?
front, or however we want
Yeah.
to do
Because
that.
it's equal, 2 or 3.
Great.
Well, no, equal. Oh, yeah, equal means you don't want to be in a group.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be helpful for me. And if you don't if you don't put a number, I'll assume you don't care. So if you don't care, you don't have to put a number. But if equal means you don't want to be with anybody else, at least for the moment that you put the equal sign there. Two means you want to be with one partner, and 3 means you want to be with 2 partners. And still, it might not work out because sometimes you end up with somebody falling off the call or whatever. But I'll do the best I can. Thanks for the suggestion, Patricia.
And the suggestion that I have, which you did ask for, is for me. I want people to put their videos on. I don't want to have a debate about whether their videos will go on or not. So maybe I should put a 2 and a V.
2V, yes. 2V or not 2V? That's the question.
There you go. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I think I've heard this expression before from some people that they really like having the camera on. It supports a sense of connection and safety, maybe. And some people don't have a camera that works. I know that's true of at least one person on this call. So you win some and you lose some. And you finished, Patricia?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Sudha.
Yeah, I think for me, what struck me, and I want to express my gratitude to you for the self-connection exercise. What struck me is that it takes just about 5-7 minutes to focus the light of my consciousness on something really precious that happened last week. And I was so filled with a sense of peace and flow and gratitude to the person I was talking about as my daughter-in-law for having contributed without my having made a request of just, sort of tuning into what my need was at that point of time and saying, Amma, it's great. Let's just do it, that sort of a thing. So and I don't think I took time, after that incident to focus on that. And for me, this is really precious. So I have a plan of going across today and, speaking to her and telling her how much it means to me.
Oh, how wonderful.
Really grateful for that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, that's the wonderful thing about gratitude is we can pay it forward. And Joy and I nicknamed it a gratitude binge. And so if I express gratitude to Joy, almost always I'll get one back, and that'll stimulate another one in me, and then we'll just kind of binge out on gratitudes. Thanks, Sudha. Okay, let's dive in. Let me check the chat. I've got a lot going on here today. Okay, cool. I think we are all right. Okay, so if you want to express a preference about the next breakout room, which will happen pretty soon, put either equal sign in front of your name for no partner, 2 if you want to have a pair, and 3 if you want to be with more than 2. And we'll find out what really happens. Might have to do some mourning if you don't get what you want. You don't always get what you want, but you get what you need according to the Rolling Stones. And how do you change my name? Great question. So on the bottom of your screen, at least on the bottom of my screen, there's a little button that says participants. And if I click that, it opens up a whole list of all the participants. And then if you click on your name, a little submenu opens up that says rename is one of the options. Looks like I can change mine since Jory's not here today. And that's one way. The other way is you just hover your mouse over your screen, the picture of you on your screen, until you see 3 little dots at the top of your top right-hand corner of your screen. And then a little menu opens up if you click on that, and it also says rename. So you can rename yourself. And if you can't do it, that's okay too. You can ask me and I'll see if I can help you. Okay, let's do a little review of what happened last week and the week before that and the week before that. Because we're going to use some terms that are getting more and more familiar to those of you who have been studying with us for a while. If this is your very first time working with NVC, some of these words may not be familiar to you. Even if you've been doing NVC for a long time, some of these words may not be familiar to you, because we use this concept here in the middle called a zero step. And this is kind of a combination of two particular elements that Marshall Rosenberg, the founder of Nonviolent Communication, talked about. That before we open our mouth, we get really clear on our intention. Why are we opening our mouth? So get clear on intention, and then bring our attention to the present moment. And in NVC, since we're practicing NVC here, the intention is to connect, to create a quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving. So that's the intention that I'm training myself to keep in foremost in my heart. My attention in nonviolent communication, to the best of my ability as a human being, is presence, to be right here, right now. When I do that, then there's a natural unfolding or a natural effect from getting clear on intention and attention. That's that I open to outcome. The likelihood of me making a demand when I'm present and wanting to connect approaches zero. And so it really helps to become more open to outcome. So that's what we mean by the zero step. It's actually our natural state. If you've ever been with a newborn baby, they're born into zero. And at least if they're healthy and well. And young children are in zero a lot of the time. The older we get, the more education that we get, more programming we get, the more conditioning we get, whatever word you want to use to describe it, the more likely we are to get disconnected and to feel some sense of resistance. And so when that happens, we just use self-empathy. We use the skills of nonviolent communication to wind ourselves to first really getting clear on what our feelings are, what our needs are, and then naturally, again, we will move towards zero step and openness to outcome. And if that's not working, then we can always get empathy. We can always ask for support from somebody else. So we might call a friend, maybe schedule an appointment with a more experienced practitioner, or even a therapist or a coach or something like that. Get some empathy to help you get connected to your feelings and needs, and then you'll walk yourself back to zero that way as well. Once we're in zero, we have lots of choices. We're going to end up, by the time we finish building this map over the next couple weeks, we're going to have lots of choices about what to do from zero. And let's say we want to have a dialogue with somebody. We would start with this idea of inviting. And so simply put, inviting is making a bid for connection. We're going to invite somebody to our little conversation party. Rather than make a demand that they talk to us right now about something that we care about, we're going to check it out first, see if it works for them. And then the last skill that we've covered so far is gratitude, that we just covered with some detail in the self-connection exercise. So let me just pause here and see if anybody has any questions about those skills. Go ahead, Suvarna.
Yeah, can you please explain more on this inviting?
Yeah. So we'll go into a little bit more detail today about inviting, but just think about if you were going to have a party or a gathering at your house, and you were going to get some friends to come over. There's probably some kind of an inviting process that you would do. And there's a certain quality of consciousness about inviting where you're basically making a request. Hey, would you like to come over to my house and play games or have a meal or hang out or whatever it is? And so that's that quality of invitation. And so we've extended that idea into just a conversation that really matters to you. Just check it out. Is this a good time to talk? Or would you prefer to talk about it later? And so I think we'll get a little bit more clear on it later. Is that enough for right now, Savarna? Great. I see you're nodding your head. All right. Thanks for the question. Okay, I'm going to go back to sharing my screen again. So the topic again today is called the glue of connection. So we'll start with just a little bit of practice with kind of using your imagination a little bit. So consider a conversation you'd like to have with somebody else. Maybe it's your child, your parent, your neighbor, your boss, a fellow employee, a colleague. But think about a conversation that you haven't had yet that you'd like to have. And for practice, choose something that would be easy to stay present for, that would be fun to practice so that you can regulate yourself, you can stay present, less likely to go into old pain or something like that. So pick something on the milder end of the spectrum that you would like to talk about. And first pick out who it is that you like to talk to. And then jot down what the topic of your conversation is. And consider, why do you want to have it? Why do you want to have a conversation about this topic with this person? And if you're willing, you could put some of these ideas into the chat, share them with us. Only do that if it would be fun for you. And of course, you don't need to name names. You could say guy at work or neighbor if you want to protect privacy. But I'd love to see some of these conversations that you're hoping to practice with. If you don't know how to use the chat, there's again a little button on the bottom of your screen that says chat. And you click on that and it opens up a little window where you can type. A colleague reaching out to meet a need for information and support. Thanks, Cecilia. Conversation with a friend on the topic of planning a trip. Friend to talk about gardening. Sounds like a fun conversation for me. I love gardening. My partner about the office work I help him with for clarity. a daughter to plan the morning tomorrow, since I will be taking her to the airport to go back to college. A group that I'm considering no longer participating in. Communicating to a friend who speaks so much, I want to request that I am unable to listen all the time. My younger brother, why we never meet, or why do we not know what's happening in each other's life? So yeah, some of these conversations are what I would call very practical, and others have quality of depth. A friend about the single mom's life, the challenge, self-growth. Yeah. So, Cecilia, I wonder if you're in a position to be able to practice with me so we can kind of
Sure.
demonstrate how this might work.
Yeah, happy to.
Great. So, I'm just going to demonstrate how, just for about 5 minutes, how requests can be used, a specific kind of request, two kinds of requests can be used to sustain to initiate and sustain a conversation. And so I'm going to be you in this case, Cecilia. So I'm going to imagine what I won't, of course, won't really know what the observations are in your life, but I certainly have reached out to friends for information and support before, and you'll just be your friend. And do you imagine this conversation would be something that you would do in person or on the phone?
Probably start texting and then move to a Zoom.
Okay, great. So we'll pretend like we've done the texting. You've already done the invitation, so to speak, through texting, and I've said yes. I mean, you've said yes to my request, and now here we are on Zoom. I'm gonna set my timer for 5 minutes, so we don't go. We might have so much fun we might forget that we have 50 other people here. So Cecilia, thank you so much for being willing to talk to me today. You know, it's just been more time than I enjoy between now and when the last time where we had a conversation of any depth. And so I'm really grateful that you're willing to have this conversation. How do you feel hearing me say that?
Thank you, Jim. I love hearing that. I also am happy that we're connecting. It's been a while. Also curious about, what we're going to talk about and what your needs are.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking. I think what it's like is I need to brainstorm with somebody. You know, I've got a colleague in my life, and I'm feeling a little bit stuck with how to have a conversation with this colleague. And I think there's two things going on in me. On the one hand, I really want to I want to get across my what's the word that I want to use? It's like there's something really important to me. I don't think she gets it, and I want her to get what's important to me, and I also want to find out what's getting in the way for her. So it's kind of like two things that are I want to know I want her to know what's going on for me, and I want to know what's going on for her. What are you hearing is important to me?
Yeah, so I hear that you have a need to be heard and be understood. Also that you have a need to have more clarity around what is getting in her way of giving you the empathy that you're looking for.
Yeah.
And also wondering what is going on for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's really close. It's not, I don't know, maybe I do need empathy. I'm sure I need empathy, but it's like I really want some kind of I think that I need to empathize with her. she like keeps saying no, not to me, but to another friend. And this other friend's really needs some support. And I wonder if there's something that I can do to help. So when you hear that, does anything come up for you about like maybe even some advice of what I might do next?
Yeah, so I hear you have compassion for your friend, and maybe you're feeling a little sad that your other friend is not giving him or her the support that the person needs. You're you're wondering what the source is for the compassion for not to be there.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if you have reached out to your friend and try and have a conversation, invited her to talk about this.
Yeah, yeah. The other friend's totally willing to talk, but the friend that I'm trying to like reach now, they seem to like be putting up a block, and I don't get it. I don't get what the block is. I must be missing something. So what are you hearing?
Yeah, I hear you don't have enough information and that you're trying to have more understanding of what is going on for each of them, that is getting in their way of connection. I see a desire in you for that connection to work and maybe have some harmony there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, thank you. You know, as you say it, you know, I just notice how sad I am. These two guys, they used to be very close, and something must have gotten a little bit sideways, and I don't know what it is. And so I see that it's really about my need for contribution, and um, you know, I'm feeling a little bit concerned because nobody's asked me for my help, so I'm not even sure if it's a good idea to be sticking my nose into this. What do you think?
well, I tend to agree. It doesn't seem like you can know unless you ask.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. That's 5 minutes, so we'll pause here. Thank you, Cecilia. I want to just check in with you first. How was this for you?
It was okay. I mean, sometimes being on the spot is not my most comfortable place, but I am glad that I could contribute. So it makes the discomfort worth it.
Ah, yeah, yeah. Well, it sounds like you really you had a willingness to walk on your edge and to actually walk on that edge of discomfort, and you're grateful to contribute, and it made the discomfort worthwhile. Yeah.
Totally. Yes. Yes. And I'm curious to hear your reflections.
Yeah, me too. And so think about the conversation that Cecilia and I had. Kind of replay back in your mind. And what I'd like to hear is if anybody has any observations, anything that you heard, any specific thing that you heard or saw that you think supported flow and connection. So I'll just be quiet for a minute or two while you think about it. What did you see or hear that you sense contributed to flow or connection? Might have been something that I did, might have been something that Cecilia did. About another 30 seconds or so to just think about it, maybe write down the observation of what you saw or heard. If you want to share what you saw or heard, you can get in the queue here. Madeline puts into the chat, I like what you said, Jim. It's been a while since we've had a conversation of any depth. That would be an example of me being vulnerable as part of my invitation to the conversation. That inviting, if the other person knows why I'm inviting the conversation, what's alive in me, it might make it easier for them to enter into the conversation. So when I'm more vulnerable, it can contribute to a connection. Is it Odile? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Odile, Jim. Yes.
Great. What did you see or hear?
I just wrote down my observation, which was every time when either you or Cecilia said, after you had expressed yourself, very, very seamlessly, how does it land for you? What does it feel like to you? What reflection? I think that really, expressed a sense of wanting the conversation to flow from one end to the other seamlessly and comfortably.
Yeah. Yes. So you noticed that both Cecilia and I used
That's right.
requests. We both used requests. And those, for me anyway, I can only speak for myself. And although I do have a bit of a hallucination about for Cecilia as well, that she actually was coming from the same place as me. She was coming from zero. And if when we come from zero and we're involved in a conversation and we're open to outcome and we want to connect, it's just so easy to ask for that connection. It's just so easy to make a request. And we'll explain more about the 2 or 3 different kinds of requests that were in there in just a minute. Jean-Marie and then Siva. Go ahead, Jean-Marie.
I do appreciate the modeling that happened in the conversation. And what I picked up that really touched me, Jim, was you expressed a feeling of sadness that Cecilia did not hear sadness, but Cecilia said sadness, and you acknowledged that the feeling of sadness. So somehow that conversation went to a deeper feeling of that sadness, that there was a disconnection that made you feel sad. You wanted more information. So I'm hearing, acknowledging feelings connected with needs was modeled in this place and came strongly to me. And I was touched by that. I hope that made sense.
It did make sense. What I heard you say was that when you heard expressions of feelings linked to needs, that opened your heart, and that you really appreciated how that helped us to stay in connection. Did I get it?
Yes, you got it. Thanks.
Yeah. And just notice how Jean-Marie made a request at the end of what she said. I picked up on it, and I chose to empathize with what I got, what I was getting from her expression. So even though her request didn't necessarily end, she said something like, I hope I was clear, or something like that. I can't remember exactly what she said, but with my giraffe ears on, my NVC ears on, I took that as a request for that she wanted to know whether the message sent was the message that I received. That's what we call a confirmation request. And so that's what I did. And we'll go through all that in a little bit more detail in just a second. Siva and then Sarah Joy.
That was just awesome modeling, as the other people say. And I love the word seamless, because I'm thinking about sewing. You make a seam, but this is seamless, and it's like a weaving. It's like a beautiful weaving. And what I also want to emphasize is that in a true conversation from the heart, you cannot, you have to listen. You have to listen deeply in order to respond. So you can't be saying, well, this is what I want the point to be. That doesn't work. it's not a conversation. It's only, it's got, each ping pong ball has to actually land, and then it can be returned.
Yes, nice metaphor. And the way that we are sending the ball across the net in NVC is with requests. Sarah Joy?
Thank you, Jim. I really also enjoyed that dialogue and felt it was helpful in seeing how to notice without giving advice. And I really appreciated that Cecilia, even though you asked for advice, she didn't necessarily give it to you, but she was allowing you to, she was guessing some of your needs, such as like clarity, understanding, and guessing some of your feelings. And you were able to touch on some of those yourself. And I felt that was really, for me, that moment of that when sadness was expressed, I felt that did get to a deeper place for me. And I was glad that it came from you like that.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
for listening.
That was really sweet for me to notice that as well. That I noticed that Cecilia resisted the temptation to go and answer my requests for advice. It would have been fine if she had. I mean, it is what I asked for, but by slowing things down just a little bit, just to make sure she got the need underneath the request for advice before she gave me the advice. That actually helped me to go a little bit deeper with what was really alive and important in me. Thanks for helping to point that out, Sarah Joy. So let me go back and share my screen with you again. And we'll talk about specifics here a little bit. Then we'll go practice again. So we talked about these three different kinds of requests. Now, the three different kinds of requests that we'll be talking about, there's actually four, but we spent a whole week on inviting, so we won't cover that too much today. But the founder of Nonviolent Communication, Marshall Rosenberg, really, one of the lessons I took away from my study with him was to know what I want before I open my mouth. So that goes back to this idea of the zero step again. So many times I notice I and other people just say what's on their mind without slowing things down and connecting to the why. You know, there's a old NVC joke, it might have come from somewhere else, that before we open our mouth, we wait, W-A-I-T, we wait. And wait is an acronym or abbreviation for why am I talking? Wait. Why am I talking? So wait just a minute before we open up our mouth. Figure out what need that we're hoping to meet. And so some of the needs that come up before we open our mouth, one would be to be seen. We just want to be seen for what our needs are. It's something about being vulnerable, being intimate, letting another human being see us in our vulnerability. Sometimes it's understanding, and it could be both, at least two uses of the word understanding. Maybe we want to have some kind of left brain understanding of a concept. Maybe I'm trying to work on a plan and I want to make sure that the details of it are clear. I want to make sure it's understood. Sometimes it's more the emotional component. Do you understand my feelings? Do you understand my needs? Sometimes we want to talk just to have some connection. Like the first 15 minutes of the class every week, we just come and hang out. The need there is just to hang out. It's not on the needs list, but it's a deeply human need, this need to connect. Once I heard Marshall say that the purpose of being a human being is to hang out with each other. Another thing that might motivate us is to discover what another person needs. In this case, that was kind of, I was looking for some kind of support from my friend Cecilia to help me understand what the other person's needs were, because I wasn't getting it. Oops. And sometimes I'm making I open my mouth to get support, which is true in my case today. I was really looking for some support. Sometimes we may open our mouth in order to get somebody else to do something for us or to do something with us. So all those are just some of the whys that we might have before we open our mouth. And there's probably plenty more. So when we slow down and connect to our purpose, our zero step before we open our mouth, it'll help us to get clearer on what the most effective request is. Now, before we invite the dialogue, we'll use that inviting request. We might even start by doing some inner work first to make sure we're ready for the conversation. I see your hand, Gail. Let me just pause here and see what your question is. Go ahead, Gail.
It's not a question. I just wanted to add a new piece to wait, which you're basically going to say right now. I know it's why am I talking? But the other thing I just learned is what am I telling myself? And this is the part where we do all the time with every meeting is a check-in.
Yeah.
So we can slow our nervous system. And I found that very helpful.
Beautiful. Yes. To actually learn to use that observing skill with ourselves to notice what's the quality of our thinking before we open our mouth. Thanks, Gail. Nikhilananda?
I took my glasses off and then realized I can't see where to hit the unmute. Jim, something just came up for me, and that is, let's see if I can phrase it simply. There needs to be, and obviously, since I'm asking this, it's coming from my inner being, a level of trust that when you reach out to another human being, they're not going to use, like you just listed these 6 items, reason for connecting, they're not going to use it to turn on you because you're being really naked and vulnerable to them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nice to have that reassurance before we open our mouth. And of course, we're going to be making a prediction, and the prediction may or may not come true. Human beings are not so great at predicting. We can't even predict the weather. At least my app can't predict the weather 5 minutes from now. It's getting better at it. But so that's actually for me, Nikhilananda, that might be part of the invitation work. That I'm going to develop some discernment about who I talk about what with. You know, some people I feel more comfortable about some topics than others. Other people, other topics, and so forth. And so I want to kind of trust myself to follow my own heart about who I talk to different people about. So for example, if Jory and I are having a conflict and she's the stimulus of the conflict, she's not probably the right person for me to talk to, at least not first. I need to go get empathy first. So I need to talk to Cecilia or Sarah or anybody, Suda, Juliana. I need to talk to somebody else first in order to get enough empathy so that when I do invite Jory to the conversation, I see her as a full human being and not just as a trigger or something like that. So that would be pre-invitation work. Once that I'm confident that I can keep my nervous system regulated and I can stay self-connected, then maybe I open up the conversation. So that would be one part of discernment as well. Atreyu?
Right. First, I just wanted to observe when you were speaking to Jessica, Cecilia, that time, one thing was very clear, that I haven't, you said, I would think around an issue which I've been facing. And of course, it's a situation which can be considered as a boiling situation. So, but it needed contribution, it needed presence, it needed a certain strength, empathy, all of it to deal with, where we didn't feel safe. And not the people concerned felt safe. I mean, physically safe. A neighbor and his mentally ill son, for example, came into our house seeking help, and he was getting violent. And this whole week, I've been wondering what was I mean, it was almost like a firefighting situation. But at several occasions, to understand how the whole thing could be made safe, and I was here looking at my own safety. This is like just 15 feet away or 20 feet away. Our houses are that close. And we share common connections with certain people who, I mean, share both of our household duties and things like that. We have help here in India. And there's this distraught young person who's coming in asking, not knowing what's to be done. So there are a lot of people's lives at stake here. People who are working, caregivers of these two people. And you can see something which has developed over years. It's not just a situation which has just come up, you know. And where do I step in? So I've requested a support group to step in. I've tried to get in touch with her son who stays in the United States, who's not in the know wholly. I'm not aware. You know, so I've been getting this uncomfortable feeling. How much did I need to engage? And taking some tough steps, you know. It might not be palatable to some, you know, but am I transgressing my role? You know, all these questions were coming up. I really like the fact that y'all could slow down, turn things into it. I really like the fact whatever you're hearing, you're being able to turn into a request.
Yes.
My own, when you don't have that, and it's becoming a luxury over and over again, I'm beginning to question my own self and my own energy, you know, that a lot of inner work maybe is required. Because why am I finding myself in these constantly boiling situations?
Yeah, good point. Good fun. The lesson that I've learned through my practice of NVC that might fit for you too is sometimes we go really, really slow so that later we can go a little bit more fast. When we take the time to self-connect and get clear on our own needs first, we might end up saving twice as much time as that inner work took, but then from just kind of rushing in. Okay, so let me go back and share the slides really quick so we get a little bit of clarity about one request, one kind of request. It's so natural. You already do it. This is almost the most natural request that there can be. You're talking to somebody, you share what's in your heart, and when you finish, you say something like, how do you feel about that? What comes up for you about that? Or how are you right now? And so if my need is to understand another person's feelings, needs, or thoughts, in other words, my needs are around mutual understanding and connection, then a feedback request can really feed those needs. So the way it works is I share what's in my heart with the least number of words that I can get across. The reason, by the way, to use the least number of words is because of the built-in limitation of the human nervous system. We have short-term memory problems. All of us, 100% of human beings have short-term memory problems. And so by keeping our expressions as brief as possible, then we support the other person in being able to respond to our request. So we briefly say what's really important to us, linking our feelings to our own needs, and then end on a clear and present request that has something like, how do you feel about what you've heard from me, or what comes up for you? So just take about 1 minute and consider how you could write down a few ideas about how you could use that kind of a request in your own words. What would your words in your language talk about? And I mean, not only your birth language, but the language that you usually speak. You might, if you're going to have a conversation with a 5-year-old, you're going to use a different kind of words than if you're talking to your grandmother or your boss or whatever. So write down a few examples of what feedback requests sound like. And while you do that, I'll finish working on the groups. Okay, so I'm going to put you back into small groups where you're going to get a chance to practice these conversations. They'll be, this time it'll be about 10 minutes long again. So you can divide it up into 2 5-minute periods so that both of you get a chance to kind of lead the conversation. You don't have to finish the conversation, just like Cecilia and I did not finish our conversation. We just got it going. The idea is that you get into the rhythm of saying a little bit and making a feedback request. And then the other person says what's alive in them about it, then they make a feedback request. And just kind of do that little dance back and forth with feedback requests for about 10 minutes. If you peter out, then just switch who opens it up and do it again, so that everybody will get lots of practice just kind of getting this installed, so to speak, as more of a habit to make feedback requests. And if you're not in a group yet, just give me a second and I will continue to work on them. So we'll see you back here in about 11 minutes.
You want any help on the groups, Jim?
I think I got it, Eric, but I will, when I get a chance, I will make you a co-host to see if
Sure. Whatever works for you.
Okay.
Again.
Okay, I think, oh, one more to go. Let's see, where am I going to put you, Pooja? Let me just find out here. I'll put you in 4. Nope, that's somebody who likes 2s. Put you into 6. And Gail, you're still stuck with me. Let's see here why that happened.
That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Okay, there's a fun group for you, because Leslie was having microphone troubles a little while ago. So just in case they're stuck without her microphone working, I'll put you on with Leslie and Nikhil Nanda. Is that all right?
Oh yeah, I heard he's funny.
Okay, good. 17. Okay, pause this. Okay. So here comes the feedback requests. What did you learn? What did you learn from that practice? You can either put something in the chat or you can raise your hand like Nikhil Nanda. Go ahead, Nikhil Nanda.
Yeah, I had a question that I wanted to ask you, and I thought it would come up, and it didn't. But what I want to share now is that our room was perfection, because you said choose whether you want 2 or 3 people in the group. And the person I was with actually preferred not having the 2. And then when we had the 2, it was great. And so we got back into the room with 2 of us. And then we were joined by a 3rd person who added so much to the conversation. And that was my feeling before. Whether it's 2, 3, or 700, it's all perfect, because there's going to be different things that come up in the conversation.
Yeah.
And if I remember my other question, I'll come back to you later. But once again, perfection. Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome, Nikhil Nanda. Thanks for sharing. Sudha.
What came through as a very strong realization, Jim, is that when I'm in the flow, I don't know who the speaker is and who the listener is.
Yeah.
And that was really precious.
Yes.
For me.
Wow. Yes, because I'm really glad that you said that there's something about the sense of separateness or separation disappears. That one of the things I heard from Marshall over and over and over again, and when he talks about the purpose of NVC is to create this quality of connection that inspires compassionate giving and receiving, and then that when we're in that flow of request energy, that it's hard to tell who the giver and who the receiver is. It's impossible to tell who the giver and who the receiver. I think it's great evidence to know whether we're living from the intention of NVC. Anything you'd like to say about that, Sudha?
No, it came across so strongly to me. I was in a room with Shiva, and it came across so strongly to me. It didn't matter. Yeah. So it didn't matter that, one scenario was being, explored. So, yeah, there's just that energy that it's such a, the strength in that connection, or the beauty of that connection came through so beautifully.
Yeah. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to be in here and to have that practice. Jim, I heard you say trying to communicate my thought with as few words as possible, and then also to sort of check with the other person about where it landed with them. And in the group I was in, we were discussing how the desire to or the tendency to use a lot of words is motivated by a desire to connect. And those many words can actually hinder the connection, because there's no break for the other person to get in there and say, oh, I understand where you're going, And so we were able to practice that, and it was great. The idea that we get more connection when we pause and we give space for the other person.
Yeah.
Thanks for hearing me.
Thank you for sharing it. Diana?
I second that. Jeff was actually in the room with me and heard me expressing something along those lines as well, which was that I need to learn to trust that the other person is going to be able to hear and understand, even if I don't give tons and tons of extraneous detail. That, like, I don't need to use that many words. I don't need to take that much time and energy. And I need to give them the opportunity to show me that they understand, so that I can build that trust with myself and with them.
Yes. Thank you. That's right. I mean, I've really, as I've learned this, and believe me, I probably use more words than a lot of people enjoy a lot of the time. But as I learned this, one of the things I've trained myself to do is to watch the other person. And when their eyes go a little bit glazed, I know I've spoken probably longer than they're enjoying. And so I try to also pay attention to those kinds of clues. Allison?
Well, one of the things that I'm noticing in this is, in my early days with NVC, it was, so raw to the whole thing. Observations, feelings, needs, requests. And okay, observations I got. Feelings, I had to learn a whole vocabulary. I had no feelings vocabulary. Needs, there was a big taboo that I grew up with, so that was a struggle. And then when we got to requests, I was completely incapable of formulating any. I had no idea how to do that. So I've really enjoyed, Jim, this, for me, focusing on requests and just coming at it from the other side. It's like the wave coming the other direction. Oh, now we're just going to think about what I want, like you were saying. Marshall says, know what you want before you open your mouth. Oh, okay. Well, if you're just asking me what I want, I can do that. If that's okay. So now we got requests, and then backing into needs, and then backing it. And what I'm noticing is in these conversations, if you just go with the request, it often ends up looking and feeling like a demand to the other person. So I need to back into speaking to that person about my request and the need underneath it and the feeling. If there's not the feeling expressed, that is the fuel that led to my request, it really makes it very hard for the other person to be able to connect with you. And so I'm just kind of thrilled about that. Oh, I see. This isn't separate. You can't have them separate. They really function in this gestalty, I think Stephen was talking about the weave.
Yeah.
And without the feelings there and without the needs being identified, then the request, then it all kind of goes, oh, then you have connection. Your chance of connecting is so much better. So I think that's enough words.
Thank you, Allison. Yes, and I like that Allison just demonstrated the other thing, which is you don't always have to end on a clear and present request. Sometimes you're just done. So you say, I think I've had enough words, or I'm finished, or whatever. That is actually a request about this conversation, that maybe we're done for now. Or maybe you say, I'm done, or I've used enough words, or whatever. And then the other person there's still this implied request for feedback or confirmation, that I can empathize with a request that hasn't been made. And so can you. So if the other person doesn't end on a clear and present request, because, to tell you the truth, most people in the world haven't heard of NVC yet. And so if you start correcting them and telling them that they should be ending on a clear and present request, you're just going to irritate them. So you can use your empathy skills and just empathize with their request. You can listen and make a guess. Are they looking for understanding? Are they looking for feedback? What's your guess? And you could ask, would you like me to reflect back what you just said to me? Or would you like to know what comes up for me about that? So you can also empathize with the request. Cindy.
Yeah, I wasn't so clear about my feelings, and I didn't request for or what do you think, but by my partner, she figured out I felt to be more clear, oh, that's what I felt, this little bit complicated feelings, and I felt to understood, to be understood by her. Yeah.
The power of empathy. Again, when we slow things down, if we're really clear on our intention to listen, you could also make it wail, right? Why am I listening? You can either wait or you can wail. Why am I listening? Well, if you're listening in order to create a quality of connection, that inspires compassionate giving and receiving, it makes it easier to empathize with the request. There's only 2 or 3 that you need to remember. Number 1, we're working on this week, the feedback request. And that's so natural. We kind of do that naturally, at least in American culture. Some cultures maybe not, but we're always asking each other for opinions. And even if we don't ask, they give them to us anyway. And so we're really used to sharing at that level. Next week, we'll work on confirmation requests. That's also a pretty common way to have conversations, to make sure that message sent was message received. We'll get some specific practice next week with that. And the third kind of a request is an action request. That's also real common, especially in an I culture like the United States. We're really good at asking for what we want. Like, would you pass me the salt? Would you vote for this guy? Would you not vote for that guy, and so forth? We're really good for making action requests. Action requests become more palatable and less likely to be heard as a demand when we link the action request to our feelings and our needs. So we'll work on that one too next week. Any other questions or comments about this? Nikhila, did you come up with your second part of your question? No? Okay. Anybody else? Okay. Well, let's go back and practice some more then, because I don't think there's time to give you the other piece. It'll just complicate things. So just go back and practice again, maybe having a different conversation. Maybe you're just going to debrief the practice group today. What came up for me about the practice group that I really like was blah, blah, blah. What comes up for you when you hear that? When the other person answers and they end up making a feedback request back and forth. And so the 2 topics that you can talk about are what worked for you about the practice group today, and kind of celebrate that and end on a clear and present request each time for feedback, what worked for you. And then if you get finished with that in 10 minutes, then you can go back and say, what didn't work for you? And you can mourn together. And Nikhila, can you hold your question till we get back? Okay, great. All right, so jot it down for yourself and we will come back again in 10 minutes. And go to breakout rooms. There you go.
Later.
There's a lot of potential, it seems like.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
we're coming
Thanks,
back.
Mark.
Coming back here, recording's back on. Welcome back, everybody. We've got just a couple of minutes left. Nikhila, you had something alive that you wanted to share earlier?
Yes, and I was reminded by it in the group. What a brilliant group we had today. Great, great, great. Having 2 people and having 3. That I heard you say, and I just want to compliment you for that, modeling that. And it came up a couple of weeks ago. The idea that I heard you say rather than you said. And I do it. I'm guilty of it. I said, you said blah, blah, blah. No. I heard you say, and you modeled that just before it came up to me. So I just want to, once again, 8 years of thanking you. Mahalo.
Mahalo. Thank you. Patricia? Go ahead, Patricia. You're still muted.
Thank you, Nicolando. I heard you say. I have to remember that. Anyway, Jim, I wanted to compliment you. Tell Jory, you just did fine. And also, I just don't know if you noticed that, but what I noticed is that you had more people speaking up than we've ever had before.
The power of making requests. Yes, ma'am. Yes, thank you for noticing and highlighting it. And thanks to both you and Nikhila for seeing my light and my positive intention. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Isabel?
Jim, I want to celebrate my team, which was wonderful. I we had a flow as it was mentioned earlier between the three of us going seamlessly. And I also want to thank you for saying what you said earlier about slowing down in order to go faster later. That stays with me very deeply. As a matter of fact, in our team, I shared how I felt disoriented, and that immediately, when I had that reflected, that helped me orient myself very quickly. So, in sharing that vulnerable status in the present, we are able to bring our minds that have been scattered away to be brought back. And we had a good laugh over why I felt disoriented. I arrived late and I didn't see Jory, and I started worrying about you, about how is Jim going to manage all this. So, a big kudos and celebration for you managing it fine. All in my head.
Thank you. Yes. Yep, I had fun. I miss Jory. I can hear her upstairs. Our bedroom is right above my office, and I hear the pitter patter of her feet. So I know she's probably packing. So here comes the thing we do at the end of each group, which is to put a few links in. The first link that I put in is some notes from today's class. If you click on that link, it should download somewhere onto your computer. I can't find it for you, but it's going to be somewhere on your computer if you click on it. And you can look for Glue of Connection, and maybe you can find it. The second thing is, if you are here for the first time and you'd like to get our emails that we send out once a week to remind you of the class, give you the connection information, and so forth, then you can sign up at that link there. I wrote a book and I want you to buy it. That's what I really want to say. I wrote a book and I want you to buy it about a year ago. And it's called Pathways to Liberation, Pathways to Nonviolent Communication. You can get links to get the book on the website. All you really need to do is put Pathways to Nonviolent Communication into your browser, and you can get it wherever books are sold. And I prefer, if I could rub the magic giraffe, that you would get it from your local bookseller, the locally owned bookseller. Support small business. That's my preference. If you don't have a small bookseller nearby and you want to get free shipping, you can use that link there that has some ways to get the book with free shipping. If you try to order it from out of the country, from Puddle Dancer, who's the publisher, you end up getting ridiculously high prices for shipping because of a glitch in the system, I think. We do all of our classes in the spirit of compassionate giving and receiving, which means it's a fancy way of saying donation basis. And you can give directly to the Center for Nonviolent Communication if you'd like. And that would be a tax-deductible donation for you if you live here in the United States. If you prefer to give money directly to Jory and me, we're happy to receive it. It helps us to continue our work. A lot of our work has to do with supporting emerging NVC trainers in the Global South, so-called Global South. Places like India, Sri Lanka, China, and so forth. So we like to use the money that we have extra left over to make scholarships available to people who couldn't otherwise afford to get advanced training. Each week we make recordings of the class. If you scroll back up to that link that said resources on it, that's where you can find the recordings each week. So you can feel free to share it with your practice groups or watch it again for yourself and enjoy it in any way that you like. Next week, we will start working with vulnerability, with our honesty, and link it to this other kind of a request called a confirmation request. So we'll learn about how when we get more and more willing to share what's in our heart, we're really likely to awaken compassion in other people and help us to get our needs met. Our needs, not my needs at your expense and your needs at my expense. So we will enjoy more practice next week. It'll be a pretty similar class to this week with hopefully 2 or 3 different chances to practice the skills. If you want to stick around, I'll make small groups for you. You can finish up with your group. If you don't end up in a group, you can come back here to the main room and just hang out with whoever's here, or I'll make more groups for you. And Jory won't be here next week either. So she'll be in Florida with her sisters, but I'll be here, Lord willing, knock on wood. See you then. Aloha.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Aloha, adios.
Aloha,
Yay,
Jim.
great evening, great session.
Thank you.
Everyone else.
Thanks,
Jim.
Jim.
All the best.
Thank you, Jim.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone. Thank you.
Namaste and bye. I love to Jory also.